It was a late summer morning in Raleigh, North Carolina, 1983. The streets were bathed in a warm, golden light, the scent of blooming crepe myrtle mingling with the faint aroma of fresh coffee from downtown cafes. Life in the city moved at a comfortable pace. School buses trundled along neighborhoods, local markets welcomed early shoppers, and the hum of university students filled the campus. Among those walking briskly through the city's tree-lined sidewalks was Samantha Pierce, 22, a vibrant and dedicated young woman whose presence brought energy and inspiration to every space she entered. Samantha was a beloved music teacher at a local elementary school, known for her ability to nurture creativity and instill confidence in her students. Parents often described her as patient, kind, and endlessly encouraging, capable of helping even the most timid children find their voice. Beyond teaching, Samantha volunteered at community arts programs, organized local concerts, and frequently hosted after-school workshops. Her apartment, modest but filled with light, reflected her dedication. Shelves stacked with sheet music, instruments neatly arranged, and artwork created by her students brightening every wall. On August 15, 1983, Samantha had a full schedule. She spent the morning at the elementary school, rehearsing for an upcoming recital and conducting private music lessons. That afternoon, she planned to visit the Raleigh Community Center to coordinate a new youth arts initiative and meet with colleagues about a citywide concert series. She carried a tote bag filled with sheet music, lesson plans, and a notebook where she jotted ideas and notes from her students. Her departure was routine. Samantha waved goodbye to her neighbors, promising to be back by evening, a pattern familiar to those who knew her. But as hours passed, Samantha did not return. Her roommate, Elena Martinez, noticed the tote bag left near the door and the apartment exactly as Samantha had left it, neat, orderly, and calm. Concerned, Elena contacted Samantha's parents, Thomas and Patricia Pierce, who immediately rushed over to check the apartment. Everything was as it should have been. No signs of struggle, no disturbances, just the quiet stillness of a home awaiting the return of its vibrant occupant. The Raleigh Police Department, led by Detective Claire Donovan, was called in promptly. Early observations revealed no forced entry, no signs of conflict, and no disturbances in the immediate area. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing school staff, colleagues at the community center, and anyone who might have seen Samantha that day. Flyers were distributed across Raleigh, and local volunteers joined the search, driven by concern and hope. Witness accounts were sparse but invaluable. Samantha had been seen walking near the downtown library, stopping briefly to speak with a colleague, and then continuing toward the community center. Her demeanor was calm and cheerful, engaging with passers-by and smiling as she interacted with students and neighbors. Each testimony painted a picture of a woman deeply connected to her community, leaving an impression of warmth, dedication, and reliability. Despite these observations, hours turned into days and the search expanded. The police coordinated with neighborhood volunteers, students, and local organizations. Every lead was pursued, from library logs to community center sign-ins. Detective Donovan maintained meticulous records, documenting each interaction, lead, and observation. She emphasized clarity and patience, ensuring the investigation respected Samantha's dignity while remaining thorough. Weeks passed, and despite exhaustive searches, Samantha remained missing. The case transitioned into long-term investigation mode. Her personal belongings, tote bag, lesson plans, notebook, and instruments were preserved in the department's evidence archive. Meanwhile, inspired by Samantha's contributions, schools and local organizations began to create programs in her honor. The Samantha Pierce Youth Arts Fund emerged, providing scholarships, mentorship, and access to music programs for children across Raleigh. Even as the investigation slowed, her influence continued to grow, guiding and inspiring young musicians and volunteers. Throughout the late 1980s, Detective Donovan and her team revisited the case periodically. Advances in forensic technology, although limited at the time, allowed for more careful examination of preserved items. Fingerprints, environmental traces, and detailed archival review became essential tools for understanding Samantha's movements and interactions on the day she disappeared. By the early 1990s, the investigation had passed to Detective Richard Lawson, known for his meticulous and patient approach to long-term cases. Lawson focused on archival research, re-interviewing witnesses, and reviewing preserved materials. Each preserved item, from Samantha's notebook to her tote bag, offered subtle clues that could eventually illuminate the truth. By 1995, overlooked details began to provide insight. Library and community center logs, notes in Samantha's planner, and staff recollections allowed investigators to refine the timeline of her final day. Small details, such as a student's comment about a lesson or a colleague recalling a brief conversation, became threads that would later tie together decades of unanswered questions. Investigators pieced together her journey, leaving her apartment in the morning, visiting the elementary school, walking downtown, stopping at the library, and preparing to meet colleagues at the community center. Each preserved item underwent forensic evaluation, with careful attention to environmental traces and fingerprints. Every detail, no matter how small, was documented and preserved, forming a foundation for the eventual breakthrough. By the early 2000s, community programs inspired by Samantha had flourished. Music workshops, after-school mentorship programs, and scholarship opportunities spread across Raleigh, keeping her vision alive. Her influence extended beyond classrooms into the broader community, inspiring children, educators, and volunteers alike. Meanwhile, forensic technology advanced rapidly. DNA testing, fingerprint analysis, and environmental trace evaluation became increasingly sensitive and accurate. Evidence preserved from 1983, Samantha's tote, notebook, lesson plans, and instruments, could now be analyzed in ways impossible during the original investigation. By 2010, Detective Lawson and his team identified a potential link. Ethan Caldwell, a contractor who had worked intermittently at the library and community center during the summer of 1983. Employment records, neighborhood observations, and witness recollections suggested that Caldwell's presence coincided with Samantha's movements on her final day. Detective Lawson approached this lead cautiously, conducting structured interviews and reviewing archival evidence. Neighborhood recollections, employment logs, and preserved items from Samantha's tote helped reconstruct Caldwell's movements and interactions. Investigators emphasized methodical work and respect for Samantha's legacy throughout the process. By 2012, forensic testing confirmed subtle but verifiable connections between Caldwell and Samantha's belongings. Fingerprints, environmental traces, and preserved notes aligned with archival documentation, creating a clear chain of contact. Each piece of evidence strengthened the emerging timeline and provided a foundation for further investigation. Structured interviews with Caldwell were conducted under strict legal and ethical guidelines. Initially reserved, he eventually provided details regarding interactions with Samantha, clarifying ambiguities in her last day, and aligning with forensic evidence. Investigators carefully documented each statement, verifying details with preserved items and witness recollections. By 2015, investigators had reconstructed a detailed timeline of Samantha's final day. Archival records, witness statements, and forensic evidence combined to form a cohesive narrative. Every preserved item, from her notebook to sheet music and instruments, provided critical insight into her movements and interactions. Community engagement remained central. Programs inspired by Samantha continued to expand, offering youth opportunities to explore music, mentorship, and creative expression. Volunteer organizations, schools, and libraries honored her legacy, while investigators continued methodically pursuing leads. By 2017, preparations for potential legal action were underway. DNA evidence, fingerprints, and corroborated witness statements provided a strong foundation for prosecution. Detective Lawson collaborated closely with prosecutors to ensure clarity, integrity, and ethical presentation, centering Samantha's life and positive contributions throughout the process. By early 2018, Detective Richard Lawson and his team focused intensely on reconstructing Ethan Caldwell's presence near key locations in Raleigh during the summer of 1983. Employment records, neighborhood observations, and archival schedules confirmed that Caldwell had been working intermittently at the library, community center, and surrounding streets where Samantha Pierce had been seen that day. Investigators cross-referenced these records with witness recollections and preserved items from Samantha's tote to form a detailed and accurate timeline. Neighbors and colleagues described Caldwell as quiet, polite, and meticulous. He occasionally volunteered for public maintenance projects and supervised minor tasks in community spaces under structured oversight. While he did not stand out in daily life, his presence near locations connected to Samantha drew careful scrutiny from investigators. Samantha's preserved belongings became central to the investigation. Her tote bag, sheet music, lesson plans, notebook, and instruments had been carefully archived since 1983. Advanced forensic testing revealed fingerprints, environmental traces, and subtle fibers linking Caldwell to these items. Each artifact told part of the story of her last day, providing essential clues to reconstruct the timeline. Community involvement remained vital. Schools, libraries, and volunteer organizations continued programs inspired by Samantha, emphasizing mentorship, creativity, and personal growth. Exhibitions, workshops, and volunteer-led projects kept her legacy alive while investigators worked to solve a decades-old mystery. By mid-2018, forensic breakthroughs provided critical clarity. DNA traces, fingerprint matches, and environmental evidence confirmed Caldwell's presence at locations connected to Samantha's final day. Investigators meticulously verified each connection, ensuring integrity and adherence to ethical procedures. Detective Lawson conducted structured interviews with Caldwell under strict legal oversight. Initially reserved, Caldwell gradually acknowledged interactions with Samantha at the library and community center. His statements clarified ambiguous points in the timeline and corroborated forensic evidence, allowing investigators to reconstruct her final day with precision. By late 2018, the team had verified a comprehensive timeline. Samantha left her apartment in the morning, visited the elementary school, walked downtown, stopped at the library, and prepared for her meeting at the community center. Caldwell's presence intersected with her movements at several points, confirmed through forensic traces and witness statements. Detective Lawson collaborated closely with Raleigh City prosecutors to prepare for potential legal action. Every piece of evidence, forensic samples, witness testimony, and archival records was meticulously cataloged and verified. The focus remained on honoring Samantha's life and contributions throughout the process. The arrest plan was executed with careful precision. Law enforcement prioritized procedural integrity, community respect, and the emotional well-being of Samantha's family. Every measure ensured the arrest and subsequent proceedings would be conducted ethically, safely, and professionally. In March 2019, Ethan Caldwell was formally taken into custody. Investigators presented DNA matches, fingerprints, and corroborated witness statements linking him to Samantha's preserved belongings. The arrest was executed with transparency, care, and dignity, reflecting the community's long-standing desire for resolution. Following the arrest, the case file was meticulously prepared for trial. Every piece of evidence, forensic samples, witness testimony, and archival documentation was carefully organized and verified. Community programs honoring Samantha continued to thrive, ensuring her influence remained central even as legal proceedings moved forward. Detective Lawson reflected on the investigation. Decades of patient work, careful documentation, and modern forensic science allowed us to uncover the truth. We honored Samantha's life at every stage, and this investigation demonstrates how persistence and integrity can bring closure, even after 40 years. By mid-2019, prosecutors had compiled a strong case. DNA evidence, fingerprints, environmental traces, and Caldwell's statements created a solid foundation for trial. Schools, libraries, and community programs continued to emphasize Samantha's positive influence, highlighting mentorship, creativity, and education alongside the pursuit of justice. Community initiatives inspired by Samantha flourished. Scholarships supported children pursuing musical and artistic endeavors, mentorship programs guided youth development, and libraries hosted workshops reflecting her dedication to nurturing curiosity and creativity. Her life remained central to the community, shaping future generations even as the investigation progressed. By early 2020, all preparations for the trial were finalized. Every detail, forensic verification, archival documentation, and witness testimony had been thoroughly reviewed. Prosecutors focused on clarity, integrity, and respect, ensuring Samantha's life and legacy remained the centerpiece of the courtroom proceedings. Community engagement expanded as the trial approached. Schools reported growing participation in music programs, libraries hosted exhibitions, and mentorship initiatives increased citywide. Samantha's influence guided the community, ensuring her life continued to inspire even as the courtroom proceedings neared. By mid-2020, the case was ready for presentation in court. Preserved items, witness accounts, and forensic evidence were meticulously documented. The combination of patient investigation, modern technology, and sustained community involvement provided a strong foundation for respectful and meaningful resolution. Detective Lawson noted the emotional resonance of the case. This was never only about evidence. It was about honoring Samantha's life. Every decision we made, every piece of evidence we preserved, ensured that her story could finally be told fully and accurately. Meanwhile, the community continued to celebrate Samantha's legacy. Schools reported increasing engagement in music programs, libraries hosted workshops, and mentorship initiatives flourished. Her influence served as a model for creativity, curiosity, and personal growth, inspiring hundreds of children and volunteers alike. The timeline reconstruction of Caldwell's movements and forensic connections provided prosecutors with a clear understanding of the events. Witness statements, archival materials, and preserved items were integrated into a coherent narrative that would form the core of the trial. Every step emphasized ethical investigation and respect for Samantha's life. By late 2020, final preparations for courtroom proceedings were complete. Forensic samples, witness testimony, and archival records were organized to ensure clarity, integrity, and ethical presentation. The emphasis remained on celebrating Samantha's life while delivering justice for her family and the community. Through these years of investigation, community programs inspired by Samantha continued to grow. Volunteer-led mentorship programs guided youth in music and creative arts, annual workshops fostered curiosity, and scholarship programs allowed hundreds of students to explore their talents. Her legacy became a permanent feature of Raleigh's cultural and educational landscape. By early 2021, the trial of Ethan Caldwell began. It did not draw attention for sensationalism, but for the story of Samantha Pierce, a young woman whose life had inspired countless children, educators, and volunteers in Raleigh. Detective Richard Lawson and the prosecution team meticulously presented decades of forensic evidence, archival documentation, and verified witness statements. DNA matches, fingerprints, and environmental traces reconstructed Samantha's final day and the events surrounding her disappearance. Every detail honored her life and contributions, making the courtroom proceedings as much a celebration of her legacy as a legal resolution. Samantha's family, Thomas, Patricia, and their son Adrian Pierce, attended the trial with quiet dignity. They shared heartfelt stories about her warmth, creativity, and dedication. Friends, colleagues, and former students testified about her influence on their lives, describing how she nurtured confidence, creativity, and curiosity in each child she taught. The courtroom became a space of remembrance, reflection, and affirmation of a life that had left an indelible mark. Prosecutors emphasized clarity, precision, and respect. Every piece of evidence, forensic, archival, and testimonial, was carefully verified and presented. Caldwell's statements corroborated forensic findings, creating a clear timeline that resolved questions left unanswered for nearly 4 decades. Detective Lawson highlighted the careful approach of the investigation, showing how modern forensic technology and patient research could bring closure without diminishing Samantha's dignity. Outside the courtroom, Raleigh celebrated Samantha's life. Schools expanded music programs inspired by her teaching, libraries hosted creative workshops, and mentorship initiatives flourished. Public exhibitions displayed student artwork and musical performances that reflected her influence, demonstrating the lasting impact of her dedication and passion. By mid-2021, the trial concluded successfully. Caldwell's acknowledgement of his interactions, verified through forensic evidence, provided clarity and resolution for Samantha's family and the community. The case became a powerful example of how patience, diligence, and ethical investigation could restore truth while centering the life and contributions of the individual at its heart. Throughout the proceedings, the Pierce family emphasized remembrance over grievance. They expanded the Samantha Pierce Youth Arts Fund, offering scholarships, mentorship, and workshops for children across Raleigh. Libraries and schools hosted exhibitions of student work inspired by Samantha's teaching, and volunteer programs promoted leadership, creativity, and curiosity. Her life remained central to the community, inspiring generations to come. Annual events celebrated Samantha's influence. Student music recitals, art exhibitions, and creative workshops provided opportunities for youth to explore their talents while embodying the values she cherished. Mentorship programs guided students in personal and artistic growth, teaching collaboration, responsibility, and ethical engagement with the world. Each initiative reflected Samantha's philosophy and kept her legacy alive. Detective Lawson reflected on the significance of the investigation. This case shows that careful, ethical work combined with modern forensic science can uncover truth even decades later, But the real story is Samantha's life. The countless lives she touched, the creativity she inspired, and the hope she planted in so many hearts. That is the legacy that lasts forever. Schools and community organizations reported thriving participation in programs inspired by Samantha. Children engaged in collaborative music projects, composed original pieces, and participated in mentorship workshops, developing confidence, curiosity, and a sense of purpose. Volunteers and educators incorporated her example into teaching, ensuring her values guided future generations. By late 2021, Samantha Pierce's presence was felt throughout Raleigh. Music programs, workshops, and mentorship initiatives continued to expand. Her philosophy of nurturing creativity and guiding youth became central to the city's cultural and educational framework. Her influence extended beyond classrooms, inspiring volunteers, educators, and community leaders alike. The Pierce family, strengthened by closure and ongoing community impact, focused on sustaining initiatives reflecting Samantha's values. Annual scholarships enabled hundreds of students to explore music, arts, and creative expression. Libraries hosted exhibitions of student compositions, and volunteer-led programs emphasized mentorship, leadership, and community engagement. Through these efforts, Samantha's vision became a living, dynamic part of Raleigh's community fabric. By early 2022, the city had fully embraced Samantha Pierce's legacy. Schools reported record participation in creative programs, libraries hosted ongoing workshops, and mentorship initiatives expanded citywide. Her life served as a model of dedication, compassion, and positive influence, demonstrating how one individual could shape a community for decades. The resolution of Samantha Pierce's cold case was not simply about uncovering facts. It was about affirming a life lived with purpose. Her story became a testament to creativity, compassion, and perseverance. Through decades of uncertainty, the community preserved her memory while investigators methodically pursued the truth. When forensic breakthroughs illuminated the final pieces, it allowed the family and city to celebrate Samantha's life meaningfully. Samantha's story continued to be shared in classrooms, libraries, and volunteer programs. Students learned about her creativity, mentorship, and dedication to community engagement. Mentors cited her example when guiding youth, and workshops focused on cultivating curiosity, confidence, and collaboration. Her influence became embedded in Raleigh's educational and cultural landscape, inspiring countless individuals. The North Carolina 1983 cold case reached its conclusion after nearly 40 years, yet Samantha Pierce's story remained vibrant and influential. Through educational initiatives, mentorship programs, and community engagement, her life continued to guide, inspire, and transform. The city of Raleigh had turned decades of uncertainty into an enduring story of hope, creativity, and positive legacy. Even decades later, her vision inspired volunteer organizations, educators, and students. Music programs, mentorship workshops, and arts exhibitions provided tangible opportunities for children to explore their talents, cultivate confidence, and embrace curiosity. Each initiative reflected Samantha's dedication to guiding others, ensuring her influence continued to expand across generations. Detective Lawson summarized the broader significance. Samantha's story is proof that a life lived with care and purpose leaves a permanent mark. Investigators can uncover truth, but the lasting story is the one she wrote through her kindness, her teaching, and her creativity. That story is now woven into the very fabric of Raleigh. Through careful investigation, ethical procedures, and persistent community engagement, Samantha Pierce's story became a model of hope and inspiration. The resolution of her case demonstrated how justice, remembrance, and dedication to human life could coexist, creating a narrative of positive transformation that continues to resonate decades later. By mid-2022, youth programs, mentorship initiatives, and creative workshops flourished citywide. Students composed music, organized exhibitions, and participated in leadership programs inspired by Samantha's example. Volunteers and educators used her story as a guiding principle, demonstrating that a life of creativity, dedication, and compassion can inspire thousands and leave a lasting, positive legacy. The North Carolina 1983 cold case was finally resolved, and Samantha Pierce's life became a permanent beacon of creativity, mentorship, and community. Through schools, libraries, and volunteer programs, her influence continued to shape Raleigh, proving that a single life lived with purpose could inspire generations and transform an entire community.